You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. My name is Arya Whitner, and this is your NXT audio update for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. It is the go-home show to NXT TakeOver Chicago, which is this Saturday night, in case you're curious, on the WWE Network. This was, needless to say, a really poor build to TakeOver. It was the most rushed they've ever done. In case you forget, WrestleMania weekend was only 7 weeks ago. And then they kill off a week while they do the pre-show matches from the last TakeOver on the next show. And so we've really only had about 5 weeks of build. And in that 5 weeks, I mean, Tommy and Rude has kind of been built for almost a month now, and every other match on the show has had little or no NXT TV build, at least in this cycle of shows. Like, this entire cycle has been a whole bunch of matches featuring a whole bunch of people that are not on NXT TakeOver, and this show was another example of that, as every match, they had 3 matches. None of them featured anybody who's going to be on TakeOver. And as a matter of fact, they had a challenge for a match that was not going to be on TakeOver. It was going to be at NXT next week. They quickly ran down the card once or twice. There was no appearances by the NXT Tag Team Champions, the Authors of Pain. No appearances by DIY. Nikki Cross was in the background of a Sanity segment. There was absolutely no appearance by Ruby Riott. And, I mean, we'll get to the rest of it here in a few minutes, but this was just a nothing build to this show on Saturday. And, you know, it's sad because these NXT TakeOver shows, they started off so amazing, and they had lengthy builds, and you could sit here. I mean, look at that first Arrival show way back when in February 2014, and the matches on them were like the culmination of angles for like 9 months. Like, and then you get to now where, like, Eric Young is going to wrestle Roderick Strong, and the angle shot for that match was after NXT went off the air last week. And then they showed it for about 20 seconds this week. And so the match has 20 seconds of backstory to build to their match this Saturday. But let's get on with the show. Bobby Roode arrived at Full Sail University and yelled at the man carrying his bag to hurry up. Now, you might recall last week, Drew McIntyre was cutting a promo, and he was confronted by Wesley Blake, of all people. This theoretically set up a match between the two of them for this week. Turns out I was wrong. That confrontation set up a match between Drew McIntyre and Sean Maluda. In case you're confused, Sean Maluda and Wesley Blake are in fact two different people. Maluda was a part of the Cruiserweight Classic last summer and has done some jobber duty on NXT ever since. This crowd was dead for basically the entire show, especially this match, where they recognized that Maluda had no chance in winning and did not care at all for his offense. Maluda hit a code breaker off the middle rope, and it barely got the fans to raise their eyebrows at him. McIntyre at some point got a welt under his eye, perhaps from a punch, perhaps from the code breaker, but he came back and won with the sick kick. Kayla came out and asked McIntyre if he's concerned about having the attention of Wesley Blake, which was a really stupid question since Blake hasn't really been on the show for over a year now. Shockingly, Drew is not concerned about Wesley Blake. However, he did challenge him to a match next week on this show. Then, as mentioned earlier, we had exclusive footage from after NXT went off the air last week where Sanity attacked Roderick Strong for some reason. Backstage, Strong told Mr. Regal he wanted sanity, which led to a video of Eric Young cutting a promo with the rest of Sanity standing behind him. He called Strong crazy, and he accepted his challenge to a fight at TakeOver. So that was the entire build to Eric Young versus Roderick Strong. We had a series of mini video features on Hideo Itami showing apparently the 4 biggest moments of his NXT career. The first one on the list was his debut in the ring at NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way in September of 2014, where he single-handedly beat up the Ascension. Now, you might not remember this, but that was a much bigger deal in September of 2014 than it would be today, since that was, when Ascension was getting their big push in NXT, and that was actually the night they lost the tag team titles after 364 days. They actually lost the belts to the Lucha Dragons that night. We got a video package for Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne, showing clips of their match from the UK. Now, you might expect me to sit here and say that they showed the same video package we've seen 8,000 times of Tyler Bate, and the same video package we've seen 8,000 times from Pete Dunne. However, and I hope you're sitting down, they showed new interview clips with both of them. Tyler Bate is no longer 19 years old. At some point in the last 4 months, he had a birthday. He's now 20. He's no longer a teenager. But they're going to be wrestling this Saturday for the UK title. And, yeah. But, by the way, spoiler alert, watch the UK Championship special on Friday, even though I don't really think it's a spoiler since they're promoting that Tyler Bate defended his title on the show this Friday, and then at the same time, without mentioning that he may lose it, he's going to defend it again on Saturday. So I don't want to call spoiler on that, but I just think, Tyler Bate might retain the championship gold. The Velveteen Dream, Patrick Clark, is still on his way. It's only been 3 weeks since we started seeing these videos, so he's got a long way to go to match Nia Jax's record for the longest build-up in NXT history. We had another greatest moment in Hideo Itami's WWE career, which was beating Tyler Breeze on the WrestleMania 31 NXT house show weekend. Not mentioned, by the way, was Itami being in WrestleMania that year, a part of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. That's not important. What is important, though, is that he beat Tyler Breeze on a house show. Earlier today, Asuka was being driven to the arena and being asked stupid questions. She acknowledged how stupid they were and kept saying next question every time she'd be asked something. WWE realizes they don't need to air bad interviews, right? Like, TMZ, I'm sure if they tried to interview an actor and the actor just ignored them and walked away or just kept saying no comment, they probably wouldn't bother sharing that interview on TMZ. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't actually watch TMZ or go to their website. But I like to imagine they get something more than no comment. Anyway, Asuka arrived at Full Sail, took a selfie with the fans that were there, which was nice of her. And I just want to point out, in retrospect, I have no idea why Asuka bothered coming to the arena, since we're supposed to believe that every week is a brand new show, including those 4 random weeks where they are at WrestleMania Access, like a month after WrestleMania ended, which was just hilarious. But still, we're supposed to believe that every NXT is a brand new show, a brand new week, a brand new group of people in the stands. So with that said, why did Asuka bother coming to the show, since she was never seen again and neither were any of her challengers for Saturday? The former Daria Baronato was out next. This time, her new name, as you may recall from a few weeks ago, is Sonya Deville, and she took on the former military police officer, Lacey Evans. Lacey, as you might recall, is very tall, very well built, and every time I talk about her, I go all swoony and lose my train of thought. She is very attractive, is what I'm saying. The fans, after not being at all into the Sean Maluda match, were really not into this match between two people who I don't think have ever won on TV. I seriously think this might be the first televised victory ever for Daria Baronato / Sonya Deville. The only noise they made was when somebody kicked out at 2, they would yell, "Sweet!" which is really fucking annoying. Jesus Christ, people. Anyway, Sonya used a takedown as an offensive maneuver and locked on a body scissors. She bullied around Evans, which is saying something because Lacey is much bigger than she is. Lacey finally blocked a strike and hit a really bad-looking punch, which looked more like a slap, but they sold it as a punch. Sonya came back and won with a step-up enziguri. Itami's next great moment in NXT history, keep in mind he's been there for 3 years. He's been injured for like 2 of them. But his next biggest moment is returning to NXT last month and laying out Bobby Roode with the go to sleep. He does not have a whole lot on the NXT highlight reel, folks. Kassius Ohno versus Andrade Cien Almas in what is allegedly the main event. This match was a good back and forth bout. There's something missing with Andrade Cien Almas. He is a much better heel than he is a babyface, and I don't know if it's just this character he has and the storyline that he has, that he's much more interested in partying until 4 in the morning instead of wrestling. By the way, I just want to say this. As somebody who's gone out drinking till 3 o'clock in the morning and then got to work at 7 in the morning, I don't look at it as a big deal that Andrade Cien Almas was out drinking until 4 in the morning and then came in for his main event wrestling match at 8:45 the next night. I'm thinking that's okay. I think he's probably recovered by that point. But hey, what the hell do I know, right? Anyway, Ohno's gear is based off the Orlando Magic jersey from the early 90s. I don't want to say this guy's a basketball fan, but we've had the NBA All-Star jersey, we've had the Sacramento Kings jersey, and now the Orlando Magic jersey. He might, just might, be a fan. I just hope he didn't buy the $495 Lonzo Ball shoe. Just, I'd have to mock him openly for that. Nigel called Almas an ingobernable, which was, of course, a nice wink to the people who knew, and for the people who had no idea what the hell he's talking about, Nigel explained that ingobernable meant ungovernable. Almas hit the double knees in the corner, but instead of going for the cover, he picked Ohno up, which, of course, led to his ultimate undoing. Ohno fired up after an inverted DDT. He hit a pump kick and 2 rolling elbows to pick up the big victory here on television. So I thought that was the end of the show, but hey, we're still on the air. Tommy has yet another video, this one looking at his match with Strong from last week. So again, his highlights was one match, a beating up 2 men who tried a sneak attack. A second match, and hitting Bobby Roode with a go to sleep. So, great highlights here, folks. Thank God the Titantrons these days are just people's names. You don't have much to go with. Finally, it was main event segment time, and we're joined by the glorious NXT champion Bobby Roode. Roode did not take his time to walk to the ring tonight, getting it done in a brisk 40 seconds. Rude said that he is a man, and as a man, he can admit that a few weeks ago, Tommy knocked him out with a go-to-sleep. Mind you, he told the story that he was in the ring, minding his own business, when Tommy walked out and did it and gave him this move unprovoked. Rude said that will never happen again, and this Saturday he will not be standing in the middle of the ring in a custom-made $5,000 suit. He'll be in his gear and prepared to do what he's done to everyone, and that's to beat them, embarrass them, and make an example out of them. Rude brought up Tommy constantly getting injured and being out for a long time. Rude even made the joke that he didn't even know Tommy was on the roster. Rude said that Tommy will have to go back to Japan and tell his wife and kids that he failed yet again, but this time he failed because of Bobby Roode. Tommy came out and was dressed like somebody who just had a match an hour ago. Geez, you wonder. Mr. Regal and a bunch of security ran out to try to convince him to leave, but Hideo flew through them and went to the ring. Tommy beat on Rude until security pulled him off. Rude rolled outside the ring in horror, but Tommy laid out two of the security guards with a go-to-sleep. He seemed to about to give the third one the move when Rude, with the Pearl Harbor, the sneak attack, attacked Tommy from behind. However, Tommy came back and hit him with the go-to-sleep. So that is it for NXT. A kind of strong angle at the end. Again, if this show was on pay-per-view, it would do very, very few buys. But thankfully, it's on the award-winning WWE Network, who, you don't have to actually pay for specifically this show. But, however, this Saturday's NXT TakeOver, it's Bobby Roode and Hideo Itami. This Sunday at Backlash, it's Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal. That's really happening. It's not a bad dream, folks. This weekend, it's all in Chicago. And listen right here on AngryMarks.com. Keep coming back to it, because Lord knows I'm going to be here on Sunday to do a recap of Backlash. But until then, thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again in a few days, actually. Bye.
You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.